Hello and welcome to Latter-day Profiles. I'm Brian Howard here in Independence, Missouri, and joining me today is Shane Smeed. Shane, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Good to have you here. Shane is a dual president right now. He's the president of Park University in Parkville, Missouri, and also the stake president in the Platte City Missouri Stake here. So good to have you. We want to learn a little bit more about you and what's going on out here in this Kansas City area, but let's learn a little bit about your background. Where did you grow up?
Yeah, so I was born in Provo, Utah. My father was a student at BYU. And then when he graduated from BYU in the journalism department, he went to work for the church. And so he worked for CES as a full-time seminary teacher in Mesa, Arizona. So we moved out to the East Valley.
So were you there for quite a while? Did your dad stay there, or did you move around a bit?
We were actually there for just a couple of years, and then he transferred with the church out to Ohio, where my mother's from. And so he got to go back to where she has family and spent some time in northeastern Ohio.
So what got you interested in the whole academia thing? Was it your dad kind of following him around, or what got you interested?
It was. I was born of amazing parents, and my mother worked in the airline industry for a long time, and so I was fascinated with airplanes. I thought I would go work for NASA and was fortunate to go work for the Boeing company in Seattle, Washington. But after a little while with Boeing, I realized that my real passion, my calling, was following my father's footsteps and working in education and working in higher education. So I spent the last 26 years working in higher education.
When you were doing your studies, college, university, what kind of thing, was that your goal in mind? Did you kind of have a feel for that, or were you still trying to decide where you wanted to be?
I was still trying to decide. I was one of those students, like so many, even the students we have at university, where they're trying to figure out what their career passions are, what their educational interests are. And so for me, at one point, I thought about culinary arts. Business was always something that always intrigued me. And so for my early education, I studied business and management, and then would later go on to pursue higher education as well.
Okay. Tell me about your family. Where did you meet your wife?
Well, I get excited talking about my family. My wife is a native of Southern California. She's a convert to the church. She has amazing parents. She joined by herself when she was 16 years old.
Oh, wow.
And grew up in Southern California. We met in Northern California, where Angela was studying, and I had already graduated with my undergraduate, and I was working in Northern California. And we met there and fell in love. It was an interesting opportunity because I was called as the ward mission leader. She was back then a stake missionary.
Oh, yeah.
And so we started our work together doing missionary work. And we were married in the San Diego temple in 1999.
Yeah, I was looking over your LinkedIn with all of your education. You've got a lot of different things you've got on there. Tell us about your path in education, because you've got 5 or 6 different universities that you've gone through for masters, bachelors, certificates, etc.
Well, it's a lifelong learning, and it's something that I've pursued my entire life. As you've seen, President Nelson said that education is a religious responsibility. And so for me, it's been a religious responsibility. So I've taken classes on the business side, both for undergraduate and graduate school, and then went back to St. Louis University for another graduate program in higher education administration. I have had the opportunity to attend a couple certificate programs at Harvard University, and that was a great experience going to Cambridge. And Harvard being chartered in 1636 was a dream for anybody who served in education to go back and walk those grounds and experience what those students experienced. And that really charted the path for education here in the United States several hundred years ago. And Park University began in 1875, so much later than 1636, but we've been charting a great path, and we'll be celebrating our sesquicentennial next year.
Oh, that's exciting. You with doing a lot of education, different places, what was your take on your educational path? What were the things you loved about it? And did you see some things like, if I'm ever an administrator, I'm going to change that?
Well, that's a great question. So I've had the opportunity to serve on the administration for some years as a chief operating officer with the previous institution. And then I came to Park University as the COO, and then would later have the opportunity to be named as president of the university. I think the focus on students. When I first was interviewing for this position, I put together a pie chart. It was the pie chart of how I was going to spend my time. And what I realized pretty quick in this process was that I needed to spend a great deal more time with our students to really identify what their needs are, what their wants are, what's the pulse of the student body. And so I spent a great deal of my time in lots of different ways working with our faculty and our staff a great deal of fundraising and working in the community, but it all comes back to the student experience. So for me, it's really focused on our students and how we can help them achieve knowledge and wisdom, even in the secular sense. But part of what we support so much is religious freedom. And so even though I work at a school that's not affiliated with a particular religion, we have the opportunity to promote them to understand and better learn about the whole person outside of even what they learn in the classroom. The first 100 years of Park University was affiliated with the Presbyterian Church, and then later affiliated with formerly the RLDS Church, now the Community of Christ. But for the last 25 years, we haven't had a religious affiliation. So it's important that they come to learn about education, to learn about their career path, but also to learn about things that are outside of the environment of the classroom.
What drew you to Park University in particular? And I want to hear about this process of, there's lots of universities, but there's only one university president at all these universities. So it's a pretty narrow niche they're getting into. So what was it about Park University that first attracted you?
I think it was the mission of the university. Park University serves so many different types of students, and they have more than 500 international students from 75 different countries. Park University has always served the military learner and the military families. That was highly attractive to me as my father served in the Army. But this was really a great opportunity to come back to Kansas City, where we had left, and were able to come back to Kansas City. And so it was not only the geography of where I was able to serve at Park University, but also its mission, its student body, the diversity of our students, and those were some of the things that really attracted me to it.
Tell me about the process. So a university president leaves, and there's, I imagine, a pretty wide net that's cast looking for a new president. And you were interim president for a couple of years, right?
I was. So
tell me about that process.
Well, it's a painstaking process as interim president, and I was grateful to have an incredibly supporting board of trustees who I think saw much in me and my ability to serve as president, and gave me time to serve as an interim president. And then they opened that search up nationally, and we had the opportunity as a university to see many different candidates that came in. And I was fortunate enough to be able to stay at Park University, to move from my role as chief operating officer to interim president and now president. We live on campus, and so we live in a 107-year-old home at the front of the campus. So for me and my wife, Angela, and we have one son still at home, 2 are out of the house, this is a great experience not only to come to work every day, just 100 yards up the hill, but also to be in a place that we can call home and attend games and attend arts exhibits, to attend lecture series. And so much of what we do in our personal time is also spent doing things that are professional as well.
Give us a taste of, you mentioned briefly a lot of things that goes on as a president, but you're kind of, people like to have you at games, they like to have at meetings, public appearances probably out in the community. Give us a kind of a taste of the day in the life of maybe a game day or something at Park University.
Well, one of the things that's been especially great about being a president of the university is that I get to include my family. And so my wife, Angela, gets to attend many of these events with me, and she and I are on the circuit. There are many times where in the evenings we have 2 events, we're double booked, we go to one and then go immediately to the other. Some of them are just to engage with members of the community. Some are also fundraising opportunities. Park University is really a tuition-driven school, but we also supplement that with fundraising activities. And so Angela's been at my side, and we are a great partnership working in those efforts. But then my youngest son, who's still at home, and my children before him, got to attend games with me, got to attend arts exhibits and other lecture series. And so it makes it more fulfilling to me as a father and a husband to be able to take my wife and my children with me through this professional journey.
Yeah, there's really no excuse that there's nothing going on, right? There's always something going on.
There is always something going on. We just finished our fall break, and this last week we had no students on campus or faculty on campus. And it was one of those weeks where it's nice to take a breath, but at the same time, I continue to look at my calendar. What's the event that I have to go to tonight? And this week was pretty light with our fall break, but most of the time there's always an event that's happening on the campus.
Good thing we caught you on a little bit lighter week, so that's good. So you could come visit with us.
It's been a great week, and again, a privilege to be here.
Let's talk about students in general. What have you seen? What are some of the challenges students face? We went through this interesting phase. COVID kind of put a wrench in a lot of things, changed some things. What are you seeing with students in general? What are their needs, and what are they doing well?
Well, the student body is changing at the university where I serve, and I'm sure it's changing at other universities as well. And so for a large number of years, we supported a much higher percentage of military learners. And as the pandemic pursued, military installations started closing education centers. Oh. And because of those education center closures, students started going online more. And so we saw this trend for the last couple decades, but it certainly has continued. More students are taking classes via Zoom. Just like we have meetings at work, they're now taking classes via Zoom and online through their learning management system. So that trend, I think, is here and will continue. We're looking to, in higher education, particularly at Park University, how do we create an exceptional online experience for those that choose that path, but also to have a great experience, an individual experience, small classes, more one-on-one learning, and an opportunity pedagogically that serves a student that wants to go to school face-to-face and have an experience in the classroom with others.
One of the things I think we've noticed is both the pandemic and also the advent of smartphones, the social experience has changed somewhat. What have you seen with, there's still people gathering together and doing things, but have you seen any change with those changes?
Well, one of the biggest changes is with artificial intelligence. And I think every university is looking to find ways not only to protect academic integrity in the classroom, to prevent cheating, but also to leverage artificial intelligence in the next path of growing and learning. And so we'll see new programs around artificial intelligence, cyber learning, and cybersecurity. So there's a new path of careers that are on the horizon. They're here now, but they're only going to be perpetuated. But we also are very grounded in the liberal arts. And so we think the critical and creative thinking that comes from a liberal arts education is important in any profession. So we think that the grounding of liberal arts, along with identifying where there are new career path opportunities, is really the best complement of one another going forward.
Isn't that funny? Just a few semesters ago, I was talking to my class, said, hey, who in here has used ChatGPT? And someone didn't even know what it was. That's not the case anymore, clearly. In fact, any teacher will probably tell you that a few papers have smacked of ChatGPT as well. But that's an interesting thing that's been introduced into higher ed.
It really is. I mean, ChatGPT, for those that are watching, is a way to really source information very quickly. My daughter, who attends BYU-Idaho, she's a returned missionary from Arizona, Tucson. And when she came back from her mission, she went back to BYU-Idaho. And the question for her was, are you going to utilize ChatGPT in a correct manner? And she said, no, I stay clear of ChatGPT. I'm scared of it because I'm afraid that someone might think I used someone else's source or information. My son, who went to BYU-Idaho for a semester before his mission in the Canada-Calgary mission where he serves now, said, oh, I absolutely love ChatGPT. So I think we're finding some students will use it as a great tool to help them with their educational pursuit. Others will probably stay a little bit more clear from that and go more the traditional path.
Yeah, we're on the to be determined how that's going to fall out in the end, but that's ever changing.
Absolutely.
Well, let's switch gears a little bit. The other hat that you wear is stake president here. Tell us about the stake here and the congregations here in the Kansas City area. How are things going?
Things are going fantastic. So we have 3,716 members, I think, in our Platte City Missouri Stake, and we love them. We love the members of our stake. We have areas in Kansas and Leavenworth, Kansas, and Atchison, Kansas, and part of our stake also includes Missouri and St. Joseph and Platte City and Parkville and places like this. And so it's a great area. I can drive as far north as Maryville in an hour and a half, and you can really get around the stake pretty easy in this area. And so I've been serving as stake president for almost 6 years, and was set apart by Kyle S. McKay. And so it's great to see him speak in this last general conference. We love him. And it's just been a privilege to serve. And so tying education to my role as stake president, President Russell M. Nelson talked about the importance of education and said it gives us the greater ability to serve. And so I'm grateful for my experience on the secular side with education, but also on religious education or spiritual education that allows me to serve so many wonderful members and non-members that live within the boundaries of our stake. And so it's been a great blessing for me and my family to serve in this capacity.
I know the temple's been here for a while, but what have you seen with the temple being closer? There were other temples. It's nice to have one right in the vicinity. What have you seen as far as the membership and how they've reacted to having a temple so close?
They love the temple, and our members love the temple, and we love interviewing members so that they can go into the temple and have a great conversation and experience with them. I'm jealous of my wife Angela because she gets to serve in the temple every week, and she comes back and shares those spiritual experiences with me. And so we have a tremendous temple presidency, tremendous patrons that serve, and we love the members that want to go there and want to serve and want to get closer to the Savior Jesus Christ. And so at one point you would drive 3.5 hours to St. Louis or maybe 3 hours to Omaha Winter Quarters. Now you have a drive for us, which is only 20 minutes to get to the house of the Lord in Liberty, Missouri.
Particularly curious about the youth because obviously you interact with them greatly, both on the church level and with the university. What have you seen among the youth, and what are the things that are on their minds as you visit with them, and especially I know as you work with those who are preparing for missions and things like that? What are they talking about? What are they thinking about?
Well, I think how they can be different in a world that is changing so rapidly. And I think that this is important. How do we become and stay a peculiar people? How do we separate ourselves from the world, but still live in the world? And that's a great challenge more with our youth than any other demographic, I believe. And so they're working hard. They're standing apart and separate from the things of the world that would pull them down. And they're striving to be that bright light. They're striving to be a bright light to those around them. And people recognize them for who they are. My son, who's in high school right now, gets up every morning and goes to early morning seminary, and that spiritually lifts him throughout the day and gives him an opportunity to really shine that bright light to those that he's friends with, most of which his friends are not members of our faith, which is great. And so he has the opportunity to share a little bit about what he does and learns in the morning when he spends time with those other students in the schoolhouse.
How has it been with your family and being here? And one of the questions I have is, with all your responsibilities, you've got a lot going on. How do you try and balance to be here and there and everywhere that you're supposed to be?
So when I was called as stake president, I think that was the first thing that went through my mind. It was quite a surprise, by the way. And I thought, how in the world am I going to be able to accomplish this and fulfill this responsibility at the same time my plate is so full? And I believe that the Lord gives us an increase in capacity when we're set apart. And so what's been amazing, the miracle of it has been, is I haven't felt any more fatigue than I did before. I've been able to make the time in my schedule to accomplish both the work of my university life, my family life, and my spiritual life, but also be able to serve in this capacity as stake president. And so the promised blessings of seeing that increase in capacity has really been manifested in my life. And one oftentimes as I meet with individuals and extend callings may feel impressed at the same time that they may receive an increase in capacity to do the things that they need to do, which sometimes they can't even imagine finding the time to do those things to serve others. But what a fulfillment it is to serve others. What a great opportunity we have to go and serve. And so my capacity as university president and my capacity as stake president, hopefully it's outward looking and focused on how we can serve others.
Yeah, with President Nelson being 100 and going full blast, it kind of makes us all feel like I guess we can do a little bit more.
Absolutely. What an incredible inspiration he is to us. And I think about him every single day, and he certainly lifts my spirits and motivates me that I can do more. I look at him and President Holland and so many others that spoke with great authority and urgency. And so there's more wind in my sail than ever before.
I was thinking in this area, there's so much church history. And the perception of the church ebbs and flows. What is it right now in your perception? How do people not members of the church perceive members of the church in this area?
I think in this area, they receive them very well. They associate with them often in the workplace, socially. They realize there are differences. I was talking to someone the other day who's of our faith, and asked him whether or not he thought others of our faith knew that we were members of the church, and he said absolutely. And I think that there's something different about each individual, and those that have a faith in a specific religion, they love to talk about it, and they love to share those experiences. And so, much like I like to share my experiences, I love to hear from others at the university who are of many different faiths that come to the university and they share those experiences. So I think from the church standpoint, we're seeing a lot of those things happening at Park University. Many of our international students that are coming in are coming from growth areas such as Africa, South America. And so we're seeing a lot of the growth in the church, much like what we're seeing on the secular side of the university too.
We think a lot about the upcoming generation. I think you have a particular interesting place to see because you interview those young men and young women as they're going on missions, preparing, and you also get to see them when they come back in the report. Tell us about what you see and the growth that you see, and how are those young men and young women doing as they come and go in their missionary service?
It's certainly special. I would say that that's probably one of the most sacred, special experiences that I have as a stake president is interviewing and setting apart missionaries and then seeing them 18 months or 24 months later come back and return and report. My daughter was a great example of that. She's a tremendous young lady prior to her mission, but when she went to the Arizona Tucson mission, she developed an extra level of love and caring for individuals. And so loved her mission, loved her experience. And so of the dozens and dozens that we've sent out over the last 5.5 years I've been stake president, every one of them to a person has come back and said, I would do it again, and just had a great experience serving wherever they were serving. We also have tremendous service missionaries, young service missionaries, and senior couples. And so along with our teaching missionaries, we have such a great unit of missionaries that serve in this capacity here, and of course the ones that we send out. But I think to your question about the individuals that go and serve and then they come back, they're much more prepared for life's challenges. They're much more prepared to make additional covenants. They're much more prepared to be married. They're much more prepared to enter the workforce. And so the preparation that they receive is not only on a spiritual level, but it's also with some of the temporal things that happens throughout their life as well.
What thoughts do you give to both the youth and others? Big emphasis on staying on the covenant path. What do you share with them? Because that is a challenge to stay and maintain that level of, especially you come from a mission, that level of spirituality and maintain it for the rest of your life, endure to the end, I guess.
Well, my daughter and I were just talking about that yesterday, and she's been home for a year or so from her mission, but she still has that energy, that excitement from the mission. And how does she keep that? How does she retain that? How does she stay on the covenant path? And one of the things is she goes to the temple every week. She loves going back to the temple. She enjoys doing missionary work, even now as a member missionary, and talking to individuals about her faith. So I think it's sharing our testimony. It's sharing what we believe. It's practicing. It's being engaged. It's serving well in our callings. It's going to the temple. It's just being an active member of the church. I would say one of the things that had concerned me much during the pandemic period, if there was a concern, it was a little bit of apathy was creeping in with some. And so getting people back into the meeting places, gathering together often, creating those special gathering places so individuals can help support one another during potentially some of those trying times.
As you counsel with, I counsel and others, you talk about the goals for your stake in the area out here. What are some of your goals? What are your hopes for the next, I guess you've been 6 years, so 3-ish years as you continue to serve as a stake president?
Well, it's been a tremendous number of years, and I look forward to the next several years. The goals that we have are really to not just find individuals to teach and baptize, but also to how we help retain individuals. But I think helping people stay on that covenant path. I think we need to remind people about the mercy of the Savior Jesus Christ, about his atoning sacrifice, about his love for us. And I think that reminder to our members of our church helps them stay more secure on the covenant path. It also allows them, when they realize they veered off, that there is a path back. And so, as stake president for the Platte City Missouri Stake, we want to create on roads where people can come back, where they may feel like they've fallen off too far, they've made too many mistakes, they're outside of the arms of the Savior, the love of the Savior. How do we help them know that His love is infinite, that they can come back, they can return, that He is there, He always has His hand outstretched? That's the message of our Platte City, Missouri Stake.
I'm just thinking, there's ebbs and flows, great things that are more difficult. What is it that is fulfilling for you, both to serve as a president of a university and to serve as a stake president?
Mostly probably the people that I associate with. It's grateful to associate with people that have the same mission. And at the university, the mission is to be grounded in a liberal arts education that helps students learn about themselves as the whole person, that really identify with learning critically and creatively, that have a great aspiration for helping others and themselves and their families and their future posterity do better because they have better opportunities to learn and grow. As a stake president, it's really grounded in service as well. And so if there's a theme of my message, it's really around I love to serve, and the opportunity to really serve others was taught to me by a loving mother and by a loving father and by parents and other family members, and that's really my message to the congregations that I support, my family, my children, and of course my partner in all of this, my dear wife Angela.
Well, it's been such a pleasure to talk with you. Shane Smeed, president of Park University, also the stake president of the Platte City Missouri Stake. Shane, welcome. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to chat with you.
Thank you. It's been a privilege. Thank you so much.